Most promotions, everybody agrees with, is a great thing. More money, more responsibility. But in fact, many promotions decrease your freedom and they take options off the table. If you've been promoted or you are about to be promoted, this episode is for you. So this is the Company of One. I'm Dale Callahan, and in this podcast and the work that we do on the LinkedIn newsletter, we talk about helping you regain control of your income and a little bit of getting rid of the old career playbook. Most of us have been living on an old career playbook that's actually really, really old and probably didn't work that great in the past either. Some things are different, right? The way things operate today are different, and promotions is one of the things that comes up a lot with clients. Is usually they're excited, usually they're pumped up about it, and quite often it's as we are working through other things, and the promotion kind of comes out of the blue and derails their plans. And it's been interesting to watch this happen multiple times. So I'll start out with just one example of a guy that was working on a plan to start his own business, and a promotion jumped in there, and wow, it was a big win. But it was a temporary big win. He was more money, he had bigger prestige, he had everything at work, he was really pumped about it. But it took him off the game of what he really wanted. And I think it does a lot of times for all of us. So we want to talk about what does that look like and why that was. And by the way, that guy later realized that promotion took him to something he did not want. And oftentimes that's the case too. You end up in a place you do not want to be. And well, he left. And finally got off the business. But that was a tough call, right? More money off the table, or more money that was on the table. So let's talk about the illusion that goes on, right? A promotion, it feels good. There's lots of excitement, lots of rewards. Usually there's more money. Now let me just tell you, that's another thing I'm seeing a lot of times is promotions without more money. Like, oh, we can't get you the money right now. That's a dangerous trap. That's run. I mean, seriously, it's dishonest from them, and it's dishonest from you. So promotions without the money, that's not really a promotion. That's just more work. So promotions optimize you inside of a system, right? So you're getting better inside that system, that company, that organization, that industry. Your income goes up, but your leverage usually doesn't. Your ability to get things done with your time, your power, your influence, you feel like it does. I'll tell you why it doesn't in a minute, because one thing is your calendar gets fuller. And I remember getting promoted one time, and suddenly I went from a reasonable number of meetings to just constant meetings, and that's fairly normal, right? And I was doing some of them because I felt like I should. Some of them I felt like they were good opportunities, and it was really hard for me to draw the line of which ones to go to and which ones not to go to. So a promotion is usually a reward for being more useful to the company, and not more free. That's great. It's great for the company. Or it could be great for the company. But what we're talking about here is you are the company. What we want you to think about is how do you be in control of your income, and inside of an organization that fits you. So why are we chasing promotions? What's the motivation? I was on a call just the other day, and a group of people were telling me, yeah, we're trying to get promoted, and that's what we're doing. Great. And there's something about high performers. We are wired to get promotion. Now, everybody generally loves it, but the high performers are usually wired to grow, right? I need to be moving. They feel safer. Now, let me make this statement. They feel safer than ownership. Now, that may sound a little weird, but I think about this like owning a home. owning a home is one thing. You're not usually moving a lot if you own a home. Once you own a home, it's a bigger deal. If you're renting, you can pop from home to home or apartment to apartment or whatever to city. And promotions feel safe, but it is kind of like renting. You own nothing, right? You've got some good income coming in, and if you make good decisions with the income, that's great. But most people don't. They also come with applause, but they come with uncertainty. What does that mean? What does this job really look like? What does success here look like? They let you delay harder questions. And that's really a big issue is promotions are attractive because they postpone risk, the risk of something happening in the company or something like that. But they don't remove risk. They actually increase risk. So let's move to that and let's talk about the hidden cost here of being in a promotion. It's kind of an identity collision. It was for me multiple times, and it is for a lot of people. Now, not all promotions fit in this category, but more do than you would think. And what's interesting is the person being promoted is blinded to these things. And sometimes they're blinding themselves and they feel it, right? They feel that something's wrong, but or it's a little off. And I know I did. I was pumped up about things. I was having a great time. But I'm like, feels off. More money, all that's great, thanks, right? But it feels off. So what's usually doing the hidden cost here, the identity collision. It usually narrows your future moves. You are tighter ingrained in what something happens in the organization. You become more specialized and not more flexible. Quite often. Now, that's an interesting thing because when we talk about that with people, they'll say, well, I'm now getting leadership experience. And that is sometimes true, but you're usually more and more ingrained in that industry, in that company, and how they think. And we used to, when I worked for the AT&T world, they called it getting a bell-shaped head, where you thought like bad things in that organization, and not every organization thought that way. So you became more specialized, but not more flexible. Your reputation becomes tied to one context, being inside that company. Think about it, and you get your business card. We still have business cards; they're just not as useful, And you have a new title, VP of something, and it feels good. And you're like, well, there's power. Especially if you're with a big company, and you have a big title. There's power that goes with that, and at this point, there's the cost that leaving feels irresponsible. If I leave now, that's an irresponsible move. Irresponsible for my company, irresponsible for me, irresponsible for my family, because I now have more responsibility in the company. And a lot of times we have this great loyalty to our companies and to the things that we need to do there. We also have this great, responsibility because now we've increased our income in our family, and they become dependent on it, and at about 0.1 microseconds of you getting a pay raise. I mean, that's really how fast it happens. That income goes up, and we think, well, we'll save some, we'll do some things, and no, you just usually spend right into it. Right, let's be honest, that's what happens. That's the American way, right? So the higher you climb without leverage, the harder it is to step sideways or to step away later. A lot of people I've worked with, they want to start their own company. Let's tell you what they really want. They want freedom. Jobs, income, they feel great, but at a certain point, at a certain income, at a certain time of life, and it varies by person, what we really want is freedom. I want to live where I want, and I want to do what I want, and I want to be, I still need to earn income, but I want flexibility and freedom in lifestyle. Promotion doesn't usually do that. It does just usually the opposite. So, what's the real measure of progress? And I'm going to say this is kind of a reframe for me. It's a post illusion. I deal with a lot of people and myself, and so a lot of the things I do, I've experienced. And I've worked with hundreds and thousands of people in different companies, all over organizations, and you see this illusion going on. The illusion of power, of prestige, and sometimes it's from promotion, sometimes it's not. But boy, a promotion is a big part of that. And so we've sometimes referred to it as post illusion. When you get to the other side, and you get past all these great Yahoo moments and feeling, and you start looking around and say, what's really going on here? And you're post illusion. You're seeing the truth here. You can choose. Some things that people come back to is when they start to get reality. They start to say, can I choose where my income comes from? And then I'm going to ask you these questions. As you're getting promoted, can you choose where your income comes from? Now, that sounds a little weird, but you have less choices. You've now got a bigger pile of money coming from one source. As if you were an independent company, let's say you were lawn care company. Right, you're mowing grass. I'm always going back to that because it's just simple. You're mowing grass, and you've got 20, 30, 40 customers. You've got income coming from different places. That's great. If one goes away, that hurts, and you get another one, that's okay. And you can grow. I can say I can pick up more customers. I can grow. I talked to somebody the other day that owned a lawn care company, and I said, if something happens, what do you do? He says, we get busy marketing and we get new customers. It's a fixable problem. But what happens when the lawn care company gets one customer? Maybe it's maybe the city suddenly says, look, we want you to do all of our lawn care. And now they're so busy taking care of the school systems and the municipal buildings that they don't have time to take care of other customers. And now they end up with one check coming from one thing. It's a big check. Now they have no way to choose where their income comes from because they've chosen to be income in one place, and that's a dangerous situation. And can you say no? Here's another thing to think about. Can you say no without fear? Could you say, no, I'm not going to do that? Oftentimes, we will see people in companies, and they'll feel like they have a certain amount of freedom to say, no, that's not. I'm busy. I can't do that. They can have their conversations with their bosses, but as they move higher up the food chain, if you will, that is a more uncomfortable conversation, and oftentimes you just can't say no. Can you move without asking permission? Can I move? Can I move cities? Can I move to a different role? Can I just take a different job inside the company? And the higher you go, the less of that happens. So a move that increases your income but decreases your options, is it progress? It's something for us to think about here. So, all of these things are issues that I'm seeing, and I just want to throw this out here. That is because I keep seeing it over and over play out, that these people are taking promotions and feeling more and more trapped, and not feeling better, feeling more stressed. The income doesn't compensate strong for all the things that they're going through. So let me ask you some questions. Let's just think about some questions that you should be thinking about. If nothing changes, where does this path lead? I've been promoted, or I'm being offered a promotion. Where does this lead? And you have to get, especially when you're being offered a promotion, you get kind of giddy about it. It's hard to be honest about it, but think about it. Where does this lead? What happens if this company changes direction? And it will. Almost always, it's going to change direction. You may be finding yourself promoted into a role that's about to be sold off. That's not unusual at all. I've seen that many times. You get promoted, you feel really good, you sell off that division, and suddenly they say, you know what, we don't need two vice presidents of engineering. We already have one, so you're out. So what happens? What's going to happen? Think about what's really happening inside this company. And many people say, well, this role is just temporary. I'm just going here for a short period of time to get some money and get some control and get some exposure. That's usually a lie. You're getting handcuffs. The golden handcuffs is a real deal. Are you building value? Are you building value for you and your family, or are you just carrying more weight with responsibility? And sometimes somebody asked me this at one time, said, are you burdening your family with more income? Now, look, I'm all about more income. We all want to make money. But there is a point in time when you're making enough, and now if you don't have a financial plan, if you are not really clear, and I get more money, and my family gets very comfortable with that. And again, it happens in microseconds. It feels like it. The income goes up, and boom, everything changes, and you can't go back. You're trapped. Now you're telling your spouse and your kids, we're going to go back and live like we used to, which was, not a comfortable conversation. So what do we to do with this? I'm throwing all these things out there, and somebody told me the other day, well, Dale, you're not helping me. You're just giving me more questions to ask. And, right now I think that's where you need to be. But what do you do with this? So I'm not going to give you steps because that's too hard. Steps are too individual, how we all think about things, where we are, our financial situation, our professional situation, what our goals are. There's no, we can't. That's the one thing. I love listening to podcasts and watching YouTubes and even working with mastermind groups and coaches. It's great, but a lot of times I find advice, and even using AI, right? Advice is aggregate. It's not for me. I've got all these extenuating circumstances, and so do you, right? And you don't need a canned, hey, for the average American professional, this is how this works. You need to be able to make decisions. And look, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you're a professional with high ability to think, and probably that's why you're being paid what you're paid, right? You have the ability to do things and to think critically. So I'm just asking you to think critically about what you are doing instead of thinking critically just for your company. So I'm not going to give you steps here, but I'm going to give you some things to think about. Promotions reward usefulness inside of a system, as we've said. Freedom comes from leverage outside of it. So, for instance, having a stronger network gives you some freedom and some leverage. Having other sources of income, boy, that can give you some serious leverage and freedom. But freedom comes from leverage outside. Those are not the same thing. So I'm confusing them is where people get stuck. Promotions and freedom are not the same. Even income and freedom are not the same. So instead of asking, what's my next role? What actually increases your control over the next few years? And so, right now I find myself working with a lot of people with a couple of different specific companies, not just industry, specific companies. And The company's great, offers them great benefits, gives them promotions. There's a lot of great things about it, but many people want out for various reasons, but they want out to get bigger options of what to do with their life, right? And then they get promoted and they find themselves stuck right here. So their goal was to get out and go into industry X or go into this other thing, and they were almost there. They were at the tipping point, and they get promoted, and now they stay longer. And as I talk to them, you just feel the discomfort, and you feel them making excuses why this is a good thing. And it's difficult, and it's starting to wear on them. And it does any of us, right? It's not because they're bad or because they aren't strong enough to handle it. It's because their heart, and this is not a follow your passion thing, but their heart, their goals were leading them to do something else, maybe work for a different company or something. Or sometimes they wanted to start their own company, right? And now they've kind of backed themselves into a corner. So the question to ask is, instead of asking just what's the next role, what actually increases your control over for the couple of next years? So I'm saying that again. So, self-control, what does that mean? Skills that travel, skills that are flexible and get you from different company to different company, skills that are high in demand. That's flexibility. We see, I work with a lot of people in the Department of Defense or Department of War now, or back to the way it was apparently, in Virginia and the Huntsville area. And boy, they have incredible flexibility, security clearances, and the kind of things they do. They pop from company to company, and sometimes it's right next door. Sometimes it's in the same building. Sometimes it's almost in the same chair. But they move around frequently because their skill set and the things that they have travel really well. What is your reputation? What is your reputation outside of your one company? Most people don't have it. When I talk to people about networking, their network, most people don't have much of a network outside their company. Not a network that is of any clout. And I even mean executives. Executives tend to be networked really deep inside their own company, and then pretty well deep into their industry. But if they're in manufacturing and you're manufacturing automobiles, you probably have this depth inside the automobile industry, or maybe the kinds of manufacturing you do inside the automobile industry. But any other manufacturing that you would know something about, also you have no network, and that's pretty typical. And how can you get to where your income doesn't depend on one decision maker? That is one thing that I did not mention, but as you move higher in a company, your income starts to depend on one person. Much less than if you're at the bottom of the food chain, or much more so than if you're at the bottom of the food chain. So here's a rule that I find is helpful to use: is if a move increases my income but decreases my option, I want to slow down. So we're not saying don't do it, but slow down. If a move increases your income but decreases your options, and you can just see it, and usually if you're honest with yourself, you can see it immediately, slow down. Let's have some conversations. Conversations both internally with your company, with your family, and with yourself. And if you're using a coach or something like that, have those conversations. Slow down. This isn't about. I'm not about rejecting promotions. We need people at the top. We need your talent at the top. But I do know that when I see people that are after certain kinds of progress, and the promotion will often derail them. I look at it. Some guy told me. He said, I felt like I was. He says, getting promoted was like I was on this fitness journey and I was getting fit and I was getting stronger, and then suddenly somebody just throws, a big bag of Doritos and throws me on this couch and says, "Watch this stuff and just enjoy life." And what he meant, I was now making more money, I had more prestige, and I was going. I was going to all these dinners all the time, and it actually did interfere with his physical fitness life, because he was just busier going to meetings after hours, and he says, but I feel like it's that way. It derailed my goals. But this is just something I want you to think about. Is if you've recently been promoted, or you have been promoted and you're stuck there and you feel like something doesn't feel right. Maybe you've been there for a while and something just doesn't feel right. But and if you're being offered a promotion, clarity doesn't necessarily come from making a move. It comes from knowing, again, what kind of progress you are really after. Because you're the one that's got to live with the promotion. You're the one that's got to live with the options that are taken off the table. So you need to make the decisions carefully and slow down, and then see if this is a fit.